started in the internet marketing space back in 1999. I was still in college at that point in time. We built pages. If you're an old timer like me, I think I qualify for an old timer at this point. You would recognize we build pages. In 2011, the Internet Marketing Ninjas, correct? I think I'm getting the dates right.
You got it perfect. Yeah. So we built pages for many years, and then in 2011 we rebranded to Internet Marketing Ninjas. Just too many people were thinking that we build websites or something, and it's like, no, not anymore.
Yeah. I've known Jim and I've followed Jim for many years. And I still remember a post that he did a few years ago where he said, you know what, we're not taking on any new clients. We've closed it. And it was like, I think it was like June or something, May or June. I'm like, really? I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's a good problem to have. Now, Jim speaks at so many conferences. I mean, I think the one that I see you the most at, or I saw you the most at, was PubCon. You've spoken of so many other ones, but usually SEO, link building, Google updates. I mean, you talk about, you talk about a wealth of information. Jim, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure to be here. Great to be here.
Awesome. So I figured, it's rare to find somebody who has done what you've done for so long and been successful at it. We just have a conversation about running a digital agency, the ups and the downs. But why don't you give us some kind of background, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Well, it hasn't always been, the start of the business to where we are now hasn't always been like a straight line. There's been ups and downs all along the route, and I guess all of those downs, I guess you learn lessons as well. And how do you not have another down again, it started out as just me back in 1999. I think in 2002 is when I started to hire. I had more work than I can handle. And it was a big jump from going, I'm trying to feed myself to now I have to, make enough to feed other people as well, and the amount of stress on that. And I didn't hire for a couple of years when I perhaps could have, just for that fear of going to that next level. And kind of when I got to that next level, I remember different times when things changed along the way and realizing different things, because you're a different company with 4 people, 8 people, 15 people, 30, 50, 100. And I think at one point back in, so, we kind of slowly grew, so to speak, over the years. And I remember, I think it was back in 2011, maybe, is when I made a mistake. Hindsight's 2020, but I made the mistake of going, hey, we're 50 people now, I want to go to 100. And somehow I set my goals to be a 100-person company and focused on that goal for a couple of years and reach that 100. And then at one point had to do a correction, which was, never a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And after that correction, I call it a correction, it really stunk. But in any case, I think that was in 2013, maybe early 13 or 14, I realized, I can't handle this. And it was, I guess there's lots of reasons, but when me, the person who was always on the front line, now has 100 people, I don't know everyone's name. I'm not involved as much with the clients or with the employees, and there's a big pyramid of levels to go through, and the service at that point definitely took a dip. And so once we kind of corrected and got to that size of roughly about 45, I realized that's the number I like. I can manage that many people. I can be on the front lines. We can do a diagram that's more a circle, with me in the middle and not some hierarchy thing. And if I need some, the old days, I would if I needed something, I would tell the assistant. My assistant would then tell the director of whatever. The director of whatever would tell, the team leader. The team leader would tell the team.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's just things did not work. And I found that, 40 to 45 for me and my company was kind of the perfect size. So at one point I'm like, we're just going to keep this size. And so I don't know, that was around 2014 that we got back down to that 45 side. And I've different than most companies where, I think the fear was for years, if you're not growing, you're dying. And so it's like, always have to grow, always have to grow, always have to grow. And something I think that's different with me than maybe with other people is I'm happy to maintain.
Yeah.
If I can maintain the level of where we're at, I'm really happy. The nice thing is we're a private company. I own 100% of the company. I don't have to answer to shareholders or anything. There's not that need to make money. And I'm kind of an old hippie. And I'm like, if I make X amount of money, I'm a happy guy. And if I'm happy, that's fine. And I found my happy sweet spot. And so, yeah, probably since 2014, there's probably been a waiting list for our service, maybe 70% of the time. And, we've had, I guess I can list names, but we've had a lot of clients wait for a long time and then they give up, and it's like, sorry, I'm not going to take on more work than what we can do. I know that this is the size where we can give the perfect amount of work, and going bigger and hiring a bunch of new people. The average ninja has been with me for more than 9.5 years, 9.5, which is a long time. It takes a long time to train people. And I guess I feel like I've got this wonderful staff, wonderful service, and I just want to keep that and maintain that. And I'm not reaching for the stars anymore. I'm not trying for more. Of course, I'm always afraid if you're not growing, you're dying, but I'm on that. If I can maintain, I'm really happy. And I'm happy to maintain and give that type of service.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. I'm going to drill deeper into lots of those points, but before I drill, what are some of, like, after a journey, and a journey of the ups and the downs, and I think kind of the downs make us appreciate really kind of the ups and the stability. What are some of the lessons, like, if you want to synthesize some of those lessons that you're like, what, here's something that we've learned, kind of over the years. And it's kind of, it's an open field for you, because I'm going to ask you lots of specifics, but I wanted to hear,
I've and again, how Ninjas is run and how we run it is not to say that every business should do this. It's what works for me and us. I'm the CEO and the founder, and there's not really like a number two at the company. There's different departments, all around SEO. But, the lessons I've learned is if I want something or need something, we used to all be in one office until COVID hit. So we were all working inside of an office. Yeah. You couldn't work from home or whatever, all in the office. And I found that if I needed something to get out from a team, I needed a project or anything, that I would get out of my desk, go over to that team and explain it to them. Hey, here's the problem. Here's what I'm trying to solve. Here's kind of the solution that I need from you guys or whatever, and we can talk about it. And it's like, for me to go straight to the team that's doing the work, nothing better than that. The old telephone way of passing things down. Because by the end, the old way, I'd tell the assistant, would tell the director, and everything I get down, the people on the end would be like, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. And they would go ahead and do it. Why? Because that's what Jim wants. And so, they would produce stuff knowing it didn't make sense. And by the time I saw it, I'd be like, why did you do this? And they'd be like, well, that's what you asked for. No, it's not. And they'd be like, we thought it didn't make any sense. I'm like, why don't you come and tell me? Hey. So I like nothing more than, going straight to people and teams. I like being on the front lines with clients. The old way I wasn't on the front lines. Like if a client complained, I say in the old days, I'm saying back when we were that 100-person company. Mm-hmm. And if someone complained about, let's say we had a client complained about something, hey, we don't like this. We don't like this site that you got a link from or something, or we don't like this content. Then we built up a big client service team back then thinking that'll solve everything. And so a client would complain and our instant response would be, oh, so sorry, we'll give you more for free. And so the client would think every month we need to review the work because whatever we don't like, we're going to complain about and they'll give us more for free. And that turned into a big problem. After we kind of did that correction, I kind of said, any complaints from any client has to go straight to me. Like no one has to handle a client complaint. Just say, oh, you're upset about something. Jim will handle it. And then, a lot of the times it really wasn't anything bad that we did. It was just the client didn't understand why something was done. They needed the education. And so, I would talk to the client and explain everything. And, after an hour of being on the phone with someone, they basically would be like, okay, I get it. Keep up the great work. Like, but it was the education, like giving them the education. Here's why, this is the way that it is. And the client just didn't understand. And once you explain, and so I know that was a big thing to do. The answer isn't, we're sorry, here's more for free. The answer is, often it's education.
I love that.
Clients usually, only complain once. And then, they get the education. And then they're, usually like, they understand things or they don't want to sit on the phone with me for a couple hours while I explain it.
You want time, I will give you time, to the point that I'm not going to ask for time again.
Well, exactly, because I'll talk like SEO all day. And especially if someone's going to be like, there's something I don't understand. Oh, I'll talk until you hang up the phone. You'll be like, okay. Because I love to talk SEO. And, if you're going to run a business, you better love what you do. Certainly every time that I've been knocked down, there's been the, I shouldn't say there's been the thought, but other people may be like, that's it. Let me just hang up the gloves and walk away. And, I remember going back to 2008. Prior to 2008, we were doing lots of link buying, which is against Google's terms of services. When I started in 1999, there was none of that. It wasn't even a gray area. And then over the years, it got a little gray. And then, I don't know, maybe 2005 or 6, it was pretty clear buying links is black hat. And, it was all of my business. Well, what am I going to do? Well, I should have changed, but I didn't. And so in November, I think it was November 16th of 2008, Google took a whole bunch of our clients and penalized them. And at that point, that was something like 97% of our business.
Wow.
And, after that happened, I sent all the employees home for the day and said, I'll try and figure this out. And it took a few months to figure things out, but I remember exactly where I was. I think I was in the office at 2 a.m. and, figured out the next thing. All right, here's what we're going to do. But, because I thought at that point, like, the business is over. There's no getting past this. But how do I say, I didn't stop. I've never stopped. It's like, eventually the stuff comes. It's like, all right, here's the new thing of what we're going to do. If we can't buy links, then okay, we need to create such amazing content that people are going to link to it without having to give them money. And, back in 2008, it really stunk. Like, I was the poster child for Google for thou shall not buy links, and it really stunk back then. But, looking back on it, it's like, well, I kind of feel like I got a head start on changing, like I was kind of forced to figure out other methods while other people were still buying links. And, at some point when we're going to stop, what is it we do? I was already, how do I say, steps ahead. So I feel it was good that in looking back, it really stunk getting penalized by Google, but it certainly taught me a lot of lessons of, how can you, for me particularly, a lot of people know us as link builders. And I kind of hate that phrase. But it is what it is, content marketer, whatever you want to call it. But I think where things have changed is, you have to write something so amazing. You have to, either come up with a great piece of content, or, a great widget, or a wonderful infographic, or guides or videos. You have to create amazing content, I guess, is really the trick to it. And that amazing content may not get a whole bunch of links at first, but over time it starts to gather links. We just had something that we did 2.5 years ago that was mentioned. I don't want to mention the person's name because people would find out the clients, but it was like someone who everyone here knows, like everyone knows this name. And he tweeted one of our infographics that we created for a client. And it was something we created 2.5 years ago, but it's like, wow, creating great content can pay off over time. And that's, I guess, the key. I forgot what the question was, but
so some of the lessons
things I've learned.
Yeah.
Lessons learned. Try not to get too big. For me personally, maybe if we had a better structure, a better company structure, but kind of with the structure of how we have it, I really can't get too big. If you're the CEO and you're no longer on the front line, you're no longer communicating with the clients, you're only communicating with, the C-level people or whatever. It didn't work for me. So personally, I find that a nice small team that I can manage, where I know everyone has years of experience, works a lot better for me.
I remember at some point when I was running a different organization, and the team there grew from 5-6 people. Within 6-7 months, we were almost 80 or 90.
Wow.
And I recall walking to the office. Now, most people recognize me because they they've heard about me, but I'm like, I don't even know who those people are. I'm just walking through, and then it is like what you said, the quality, and I would see some, and I'm like, really, we put this out? This is embarrassing. But you grow this fast, then somebody's making a decision, they're not holding the same standards as you, and here you are. I'm like, oh God, we have to do cleanup, and it's painful to do some of that.
Very painful, very painful. And part of my fear of not growing as well, I'm sure, comes from not wanting to lay off people that did nothing wrong. That about killed me. It's like, I don't want to have to go through that again.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I have an answer. So I'm going to start with my answer, and then I'm going to ask you. The hardest thing for me is hiring talent, running an agency. Now we're smaller than you guys. But what's the hardest thing in running the business? If you say one problem, here's the hardest.
Wow. Well, it's not hiring. Gosh. Well, I should have thought about this one a few minutes before this. Put me on the spot here. What's the hardest? I don't know. Not enough hours in the day.
How many hours are you doing, if you don't mind sharing? I'll ask anyways. You have the right to say, Khalid, I'm not going to answer that.
No, I mean, now that we've been home for a couple of years now because of COVID, we all work from home now. I usually start my work day 9:30 or 10 in the morning, and I don't know, usually about 11 o'clock at night, I'll turn my computer off. 11, 12 at night, I'll turn it off. But I'm taking breaks throughout the day. But I'm doing that as well on the weekend. So I don't know, 60 to 80 hours a week, maybe 80 hours a week. I were to guess 70 to 80 hours a week.
You're pushing really hard, my friend.
I like what I do. I mean, it's not like I wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I hate this. It's like, all right, here we go. And at midnight, if I'm up till midnight working on something, it's like, I'm proud of some project I'm doing. It's like, this is great. Like, the client's going to love this or something. Like I find it I can't remember ever being upset about having to work. I certainly could work less, but I like it. I like what I do. And I guess if you're going to run a business, you better like what you do, because, I remember years ago reading the 4-Hour Work Week and being like, oh, like, that's what I want to do. 4 hours a week. I forget the guy that wrote it.
And Ferris. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. And he even did an update that was like twice as thick. And I read that one too. And, you know, at one point I had to realize, no, if you're an entrepreneur running a business that you not work, if you're working 4 hours a week, you're going to go under. Like, no,
Yeah.
you know, you better love what you do and plan on working all the time. You know, I've been doing it for 23 years and I've always worked a lot. But I like it. And, you know, I don't ever want to grow stale. Like I don't want people to be like, oh, I had Jim Boykin. Yeah. You know, he used to know what he was doing, you know, it's like, no, like every day, you know, I'm reading like Barry's email with, you know, 50 links in it,
Yeah.
trying to read everything. So a lot of my time as well is just reading about SEO stuff, trying to keep up with everything and trying to come up with new tool ideas and new content ideas. And
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's funny. So my son asked me this question a couple of days ago. He's like, what's your hobby? I'm like, work. He's like, you didn't even think about it. I'm like, I enjoy what I'm doing. He's like, so if I give you $10 million, what will you do? I'm like, I'll work still. Cause I can't imagine, like, I'm like, I just enjoy it. Really, it's like, it's like I've developed. I enjoy learning something new about what I do. And I enjoy like kind of dealing with the challenges. So it's always fascinating. So Jim, let me ask you this question. Sales, those are the challenges that I think of when it comes to an agency, the sales piece, the how do I get clients, then how do I hire people to keep the clients, like so hiring the right staff, how do I keep clients engaged for a long time, and how do I build the right culture. So those are kind of like the four areas. But let's talk about sales.
sure,
What works, what doesn't work, what do you think?
sure. We've
What works
always
for you guys?
had just one salesperson. It used to be me until, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe. Because I'm thinking, in order to do sales, you got to know SEO. How can
Yeah.
you have a sales guy that doesn't understand? And so our first salesperson beyond me was someone who had years of SEO experience, who had worked for me for many years, kind of knew his stuff.
Mm.
And so I was comfortable turning sales calls over to this person. And then he left, and Chris Sullivan has been in that role now for, gosh, maybe 8 years now. But he was, so our salesperson at one point, as a link builder and team leader and customer service, like had other roles within the company. And so going into sales, he knows what he's talking about. He understands the teams and the things we do and things we can't do. And so we just have one salesperson. That person 99% of the time doesn't do any outreach. I think 3 years ago he did some outreach. There's occasionally an outreach. I think almost never is there outreach. There are occasional times where he'll outreach to someone, kind of cold call, so to speak. Hey, but the majority of the time it's people that fill out the form on our website. It used to be the majority of the leads used to come from speaking at conferences. So we ask a question, how did you hear about us? And
Yeah.
often it's, saw Jim speak at a conference. And then after COVID, and no more conferences, may have even happened before then, but at one point it switched over to referrals from current clients, which was really nice to have. And it's interesting too with a lot of the clients because, at a lot of the big companies, they go through their SEO,
Yeah.
it seems like every 2 years. And so every 2 years, it's almost like you have to resell your service to the new internal guy. And I remember like one of our biggest clients we had years ago, a huge company, and we went through several different SEOs. And like the fourth one is like, how come we're spending all this money for you guys? Our SEO is great. And it's like, yeah, hello. We're the ones that did
That's
that.
us.
Like, we don't need this anymore. But the neat thing is when people leave, they often go to other companies. Like, you need the ninjas, So the cool thing is we've had some people that have, brought us around all the companies that they go to. But where was I? Sales. So a lot of it is client referral. I think that's the majority right now. We used to get a whole bunch of leads from Rand or from SEO Maz's recommended list of SEOs. I think that's pretty much faded away. I think the page just doesn't rank or isn't featured as much, but I remember that used to bring us in a lot of leads. So yeah, I guess we're lucky in that we don't have to do a lot of outreach. It just kind of comes to us, and often they are pitching a couple of companies. So we still have to pitch them good and explain the services. But yeah, I feel good that I've got a guy who knows what he's doing and he's been in all of these roles.
Yeah.
I can't just picture, and I think we did once. We did hire back when we were the 100-person staff. I remember we hired another salesperson, and that person's role was to do the outreach. And we would send companies gift baskets, or we did all sorts of clever things to try and get other companies' attention and get them to talk to us. And I think at one point I asked, has that person ever made a sale? And the answer was no. And I'm like, well, this doesn't seem to be working. So, yeah.
Yes, it's funny because back in 2010, I hired a sales guy. He was absolutely amazing, but he's like, Khalid, we need to do cold outreach. That's what everyone, big companies do. So I'm like, sure. So he hires two, what he called BDRs, business development representatives, and they hit the phones. And those guys hit the phones, 52,000 calls in 1 year, 52,000 calls.
Wow.
We've closed one deal out of this. I mean, I had to let go of them, but I felt so bad for them. I really did, because I mean, just imagine having to do that constantly. Like, you're just trying to talk, and if you're not answering, you're sending emails, and then you end up with like, okay, so the salary, like, the time, like, we put, and the effort and the money, and they were frustrated, and I was frustrated. I'm like, what, this is just not for us. There are some people who make it work.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot harder to do a cold call outreach than someone that's contacting you. I mean, I remember for a couple of years, I used to have a booth at all the conferences, at Search Engine Strategies, and all those would have our booth. And I think about 2005 or 2006 is when I started speaking at the conferences. And I realized very quickly, holy mackerel, I'm getting way more leads from speaking than standing at a booth. And at the booth, people walking by, hey, have our swag, come talk to us, and what do you need? And we're your solution. And doing that all day long, for like a 4-day conference, maybe would get, something, I don't know, but speaking, after that, the leads came right in. And, I think that's, for a while, I just refused to go to the booth. I'm like, I don't want a booth. Like, it's all day trying to pitch your sales, and I can just get up on stage, and afterwards, people come up and here's my card, come talk to me. And it's like, oh, that's a lot better.
No, I mean, we did the booth, and the first booth we did was back in 2008, 2009. At the IRC, Internet Retailer Conference in Chicago. And it was, the first year was absolutely amazing, because we were just starting the business, like, it's like the first time, and it's like, oh, okay, we probably spent like $600 on that point. We were just starting out, and we've generated a ton of business out of this. By 2000, I think 14, we're spending a ton more money, of course, because now, like, oh, you're bigger, so it has to be a nice booth, and it has to be the. And then I look and I'm like, we're not generating any business out of this. We're like, it's just busy work, correct? So the sales guy would keep calling instead of just sitting around. I'm like, okay, let's not do this. There's no need just to do activity for the sake of activity. Let's talk about talent, hiring talent. I mean, it's amazing that the average ninja is with you for at least 9.5 years. That's absolutely amazing. How do you find good talent? How patient are you with talent? Like, until you train them? I mean, now they're trained.
Yeah, almost all of our people that started for Ninjas had zero experience. They didn't know anything about internet marketing. Yeah, I think we have 41 Ninjas right now. And I think maybe 4 or 5 didn't start out at that entry level position that kind of everyone starts out at. And what was the question again? Oh, finding talent.
Yeah, how do you find the talent? So you're taking somebody fresh, correct?
We start almost everyone starts at what I call, it's kind of an entry level job. But if you're really good at that entry level job, you're going to be making more than managers of other departments. And so hiring and finding talent. So I want people that are going to stick around for years as well. You know, in today's society, you know, you seem to get resumes and it's like every 6 months they're at a different place for on and on and on. And it's like, I don't want those.
Yeah.
I usually don't want people fresh out of college. There were years where it seems like everyone we hired was straight out of college. You know, this was their first job. I don't want those either. I want someone that's been in the real world, and have hustled and understand what the real world is like, so to speak, so that they'll kind of have a little bit of appreciation for this job. A lot of our employees have been former waiters, servers, teachers, bartenders, people who've worked at Starbucks. It's kind of like, if I know that they can hustle, if I know that they can multitask, if they've had jobs where it's like, it's intense, you know, and to get a job like what we have where it's not hard physical labor, there's no one micromanaging you. It's a pretty cushy job, really, if you're good at it. And so I try and find people that have been in the real world that look like they're talented, they can multitask, they can learn quick, and that ideally people that, if they're good at the job, will be like, man, this is where I want to stay. Like, they treat us really good. There's lots of benefits. The better I do, the more pay I'm making. Like, but you know, I don't want people that are like, this is just a stepping stone. You know, I'll start here and then go somewhere else. And I don't want people that, you know, rarely that are like, you know, I know about SEO. In fact, our application says, for our job application says, you know, do you have experience in search engine optimization?
Yeah.
If you seriously do, tell us about it. But if you don't, that's okay. Most of our best ninjas knew nothing about SEO before they came here. And often it's easier to train people in how to do it rather than untrain them and what they think. It's something like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't want someone that comes in and is like, I know SEO, unless they're like, they really know SEO. You know, I've heard of their name. You know, that's different. If you're like an Ann Smarty or something, you know, hey, great.
Yes.
But if you're Bob off the street and you're going to try and tell me you know SEO, no, and then I'm going to have to unteach you whatever you think you know. And so I guess I try to find people that have been in the real world that are going to understand that this is a good job, and you know, we treat you better than a lot of, you know, I'm the old hippie. I'm not, you know, that guy that's all out for all the money. I'm out to be something different, and part of that is treating my employees with respect and you know, giving them everything that we can, you know, with our budgets, and being a good company. And you know, I want people that are going to appreciate that and ideally stick around for years. And if they're loyal to me, I will bend over backwards to help them out.
I love that. I love that. So if you take somebody, okay, you're like, you know, you don't know SEO. How long do you expect to see? Because like, you know, there's the teaching aspect. Okay, I'll teach you SEO. I train you. How does that work?
Sure. Well, it depends on what role you're in. You're going to be in one of the departments. You know, I don't know if you're going to be in the content department or if you're going to be in, we have another team called Linkable Assets. They're trying to create stuff that would go viral, that team. We have another team that writes, we call it trust bait content. So it's all sorts of trusted material. So whatever, you know, and there's other teams, but you know, whatever team you're on, you're going to go through a training program with that. And you're going to understand here are the things that you need to do for that. You're not going to be educated in all the other areas. You're going to kind of know what your department does, why your department does it, how to do it. But, you know, if you took any one of those people out and said, you know, how much do you know about SEO? Well, they'll be like, I know a lot about this area, but I really don't know stuff about that. So it's not like we're taking everyone and be like, we're going to train you to be, you know, the ultimate SEO. You're going to know everything. It's going to be, you're going to be put into a department and you're going to be really good at what you do in there, but you know, you're not going to know every aspect of everything.
How long is the training? Like, you know, what's kind of like, you know,
we actually, it's funny. We just hired There are 3 people on our going through training right now. I think the official training period for their role is, the official is 2 weeks. After that, for the next 2 weeks, there's other help, like other ninjas are helping them out and assigned to them. So kind of, I guess the first month is really your training. It's not to say that it ends after that, but, you know, I guess officially after a month, you know, you're going to have another review with me, and, you know, ideally you understand what your job is and how to do it. And, you know, I guess about a month, you know, but that's not to say that, you know, after a month you're done and you know everything. As to say, after a month you're able to do, you know, some work and to help contribute to the team.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I was, it's sort of interesting because we've done where we brought somebody on board and we're like, oh, let's just give them their time to train. And we spent 2-3 months training. And I'm like, okay, this was not very useful because they're not getting the hands-on experience. So what we do right now, I think we have about 1 week intensive and then another week kind of like wrapping. And then I'm like, join a project. You're not going to lead the project. You're just joining, you know, so there's a project lead and you're going to do like, you know, small tasks slowly as you get a hold. I do expect somebody to be sort of interesting for us, 6 to 12 months before somebody starts getting it. Like, I was like, okay, now, you know, but for us, like they run the whole gap from A to Z, like whenever they're doing CRO.
One of the neat things that we do is I never hire just one person. It is almost always 3. It's almost always 3 actually, because if you hire 3 people at the same time for the same job, they're going to be competitive.
Oh yes.
And there's nothing better, I found, than a little bit of competition, you know. And if you got 3 people that are all hot and you start, you know, playing them off each other, hey, you know, you're the bottom person, you know, but you know, that pushes them as well. I mean, I remember, so yeah, hiring 3 people at the same time for the same job, I think is great. It makes them very competitive, which is good. I remember years ago, going way back, the very first time that I still remember, I could picture it out of the wall. This is probably 2005, but like I bought a whiteboard and I put people's names on the whiteboard and I put down how many links they got each week. And, you know, people, and how I say, it was a huge thing. Like suddenly everyone's looking at their numbers, everyone else's numbers, and suddenly it got competitive. And, you know, people knew if you were always the bottom person, you're not going to be at the company a whole lot longer. And it's not going to be a surprise to anyone. Like no one's going to be like, where's Bob? You're going to be like, wow, it's about time Jim let Bob go. You know, he didn't understand it. And so putting numbers on the board and a lot of how our team, you know, there's different teams, but a lot of the teams are on a bonus structure. And so, you know, one of our bigger teams, the team that's writing the trust-based content, there's numbers involved. And if you're in the top half, you're going to get a bonus. If you're in the bottom half, you're not going to get a bonus. And then the bonus is a big, you know, depending on which place you're in, it's a big difference. And so everyone in here is competing against each other because it's a really big bonus difference between all those levels.
Wow.
And so I got the top people fighting it out, which is great. You know, that's 80% of the, you know, 70 to 80% of the stuff that we're getting. And you know, the bottom people are trying to get into the top half, and you know, you don't always want to be the bottom person or below a certain level. They know that, you know, Jim's not going to accept that. But yeah, I like, you know, and other teams are bonused in other ways, you know, so you know, that one team is bonused on an individual level and they're really hardcore competing against each other. We have another team, the linkable asset team, the team that's trying to have stuff go viral, where they get bonuses for all of them together as a team. They're more of like a unit working together. And so depending on the number of things we're doing each month to try and go viral, and the number of those that do go viral, they get a bonus for the number of things that go viral. You know, if
Yeah.
2 things go viral, you get this much. If 3 things go viral, it's this much. 4, it's this much. Anything below that, there's no bonus. So they're trying their darndest all together to make stuff go viral, because, you know, they're all going to get a bonus, you know, the same bonus for that team, because they're working together.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, we just introduced the bonus structure, and it's not fully still, like, you know, we're sort of kind of looking at that. So it's just kind of interesting, because when we've done it in the past, it became like almost like a guarantee. Like everybody assumes that's their part of their salary. And I'm like, no, it's not actually. There's lots of factors, but the problem also, we didn't define the criteria. It's like, this is how it is. So I'm kind of looking at that.
I like the criteria as well, where a lot of people, when they start first as well, if they're, say, on the link team, they're like, how many links should I get?
Mhm.
And it's, you know, there's not a number. The more links you get, the higher the pay you're going to make. Don't always be the bottom person.
Oh God, yeah, I love that, because that just,
and there is a certain level, but, you know, it's not like, like, what is a good number? Well, you
Yeah.
know, try and beat the person that's number 1. You know, it's all pitting everyone against each other.
Yeah.
Because I find that brings out better numbers than if I set a number. If I'm like, you know, you need 30 or whatever, then people probably be, okay, I'll just maintain 30.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not. There's a whole bonus system so that people don't stop. We have lots of bonuses at Ninjas for lots of things.
Mm.
You know, even if sales are good. So we kind of have 3 levels as well. We have another reason why I'm different than most people. Like, you know, years ago, we'd be like, here's the projections for the year, you know, and sometimes we'd reach it, sometimes we wouldn't. A couple of years actually spot on. And then at one point I came up with different goals for the year. And it was 3 levels. Yeah. Here's a happy level, here's a happier level, and here's the happiest level. And we can't go over the happiest level, because if we go above that, our service is going to stink.
Yeah.
But if we're at the happy level, all the ninjas are going to get a bonus. We're at the happier level, everyone's going to get a bigger bonus. We're at the happiest level, everyone's going to get an even bigger bonus. So, and then there's stuff within each teams as well for criteria. So the teams are encouraged for a couple things. They're encouraged to say, give us more work, because the more projects they can do, the more of a bonus that they have the potential of getting.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh, it's too much. You know, it's like, oh, it's a chance for more bonus money. I'm not just throwing more work on people. Yeah. It's more work with the opportunity to make more money from it. Now, I'm not going to throw more work to them than they can handle. That's kind of that top level. But, you know, if people are at this level for work, they're going to be asking for more. Hey, I want more work because I want more of a bonus. So it kind of gets everyone wanting us to take on more, and they know that, you know, I'm not going to dump on too much. And the better the company does as a whole, the more of a bonus that everyone is going to get. So, you know, it's hard to always raise, you know, I remember reading something that says, like, why do bosses give out bonuses? Why don't they just pay people more? You know, and it's like, you know, if we have a happiest bonus, you know, I'm not just going to pay her. You know, I have people here for 9.5 years. You know how much salary goes up every year for them? Like, it's expensive to have 9.5 year employees all the time. You know, and sales don't always dictate me paying everyone more and more every year. But it's like, the better the company is doing, the more I'll pay everyone. You know, and the more bonuses I'll give, and the better that we do on anything, the more I'm going to pay everyone. So it's not just salary. I really do use the bonuses a lot to try and get everyone to want to take on more work and to do better work. And it all comes out, a lot of it, in bonuses.
I love that. I love that. I see Stefan just joined us. He's on mute, so he's on the next session. So we still have, if anybody, by the way, has any questions, please use the chat feature. Jim, let's finish with this. Let's talk about clients and keeping clients happy. Do you guys know what's the average time a client stays with you?
They do. I think it's 3.9 years.
Wow.
So it's a fairly long time. And the interesting thing is, a lot of clients, and actually that's from like the existing clients, they're the regularly occurring clients today. But the interesting thing is, and I wanted to run these numbers, a lot of clients, they come and go over the years. Actually, it's interesting. Yesterday, I had a phone call with a guy who was a client 11 years ago, and has come back. It's like, wow, good to talk to you again. Keeping clients, I guess it's, I guess just trying to always give them the best work, having a good customer service team. We have two people that talk to the clients. You're either on Paul's team or Sean's team. You're going to be talking to one of those two people, and they're just wonderful people that are very open. And I think if a client was ever upset over something, I'd hope that they would tell this person, who then would, let us know. Secret to keeping clients a long time, it's just giving really good service and listening to them. And I try and keep in communication as well. We have a client only newsletter that I put out as well once a month.
Nice.
I'm involved with the client work as well. Whenever a client is getting a report or showing their work, there's my name on stuff as well. It's not like, Bob the intern is doing it. It's like, everyone you see doing this work, because everyone's work is named. You can kind of see who did everything. These are really experienced people, and I'm contributing as well. I'm helping the team as well. Because I don't want people to think that, they're just being passed off either to, some little team. Like, you get a really experienced group of people. I'm involved. You got Ann Smarty involved and everything as well. Like, you got some good knowledge behind stuff as well. So
I love that. I love that. So is the client strictly in touch with the two gentlemen that you mentioned, or they also get in touch with the team members?
almost always it's one of the two gentlemen. So they're basically anytime the client needs something, they're going to talk to either Sean or Paul, their client rep. That person will then kind of talk to whatever teams or anything. But I think it's a lot simpler that the client knows, if I have a question, I'm going to call up Sean. Sean will get me the answer.
Okay.
But there are meetings where certainly, I did a meeting this morning where there was 4 different ninjas on that call. So it's not like they're only talking to the client rep. There certainly are times where they're talking to the analyst or talking to the team leader or something, but 98% of the time they're talking to their main person, who then will get them their answer.
I love that. Yeah, it's sort of interesting. And I guess let me kind of follow up with this question, because for us, we meet with clients once a week. That's like kind of a set standard where and it's a lot of work, correct? Because every time you're meeting, kind of you're prepping, but here's the work that we've done last week. And we're the kind of agency that pushes really fast. We move a lot faster. How often are you guys meeting with clients?
It varies. Now, all clients are going to have like an onboarding call with a bunch of ninjas, including me. They're going to have a 1-month review call as well to go over our first month of work. That's led by me. There'll be other ninjas in there. And then every 6 months, we're kind of creating other big projects. We're kind of, in a sense, planning for 6 months out. Every 6 months, they're going to get a great big report, analysis, action items. And I'm the one that's going to be covering those. Okay. But anytime that a client needs something, I guess we have the variety of clients. We have some clients that once every 6 months is just fine with them. They're like, great. We had a client yesterday, it was their 6-month review phone call, and they're like, we don't need it, just keep on going. Okay. But then we have other clients that are much more needy. And those clients, are talking to, Sean or Paul, at least weekly, probably. We do have the occasional client where there's a weekly phone call with them if they're a really big client, and they insist upon it. Okay, yep. So we have some clients that have weekly, but the majority, believe it or not, is once every 6 months that they're talking with me, I should say, that we're having like the official big meeting. But there's certainly, probably 90% of those are having other phone calls and emails along the way. And some of the clients, it's a lot, some of the clients are much more needy or want a lot more hand-holding or work, and that's okay. And so they're getting that as well. But yeah, the perfect client's the one where like every 6 months, you know, we give them a big review. They're like, wow, we're going to be busy for the next like 6 months. Thank you. And we're like, great. You know, anytime you need something, let us know. So usually it's once every 6 months, but certainly a lot of clients, they're having a lot more communication than the official meetings, and some are doing weekly.
That's sort of interesting because we had to, and I never imagined like that I would do this, but we had to let go of a client back in December, where we're like, you know what, this is way too much work. Not like, you know, we do weekly meetings, but with that, as like, you know, the weekly meeting that was supposed to be 45 minutes became 2 hours. And then I look at the team members and they're just exhausted afterwards. So I'm like, you know what, so gotta pull the plug. And I've never seen our team usually, they love working with the clients, but they were excited. They're like, oh, we're done. I'm like, yes, we are done. So like, you don't need to tell me. I've seen the struggle. So
yeah, there's certainly, you know, a lot of them are getting all this for free or it's kind of included, but if they're abusing it, or maybe abusing it's not the right word, if they need more work, then, you know, and if it gets to be above and beyond, you know, what we're comfortable with, then we may be like, hey, you know, we're going to charge you some consulting time. But that's pretty rare. I think that's only happened a couple times. But yeah.
Awesome. Jim, thank you so much for sharing all the insights. It's been wonderful, very, very insightful. So the recording is going to be out as well. We're going to be sharing it with the attendees, and I think Stefan and Tony have both joined us. So for the next session, if people want to find you, how do they find you? Where do you hang out? I mean, I know you hang out on Facebook, but here you go. IamNinjas.com.
Yeah, that's kind of the short URL. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Google my name, Jim Boykin. So,
you'll find Jim. There you
Yeah.
go. Do a little bit of ninja work, and then you'll find looking up Jim. So
Happy to talk about SEO.
there you go. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate you jumping.